Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Heck, I've become too greedy. The last 2 million must have done it. I should have just forgotten about it. I knew there was something wrong with this account. Heck, now they were getting closer. Although they seemed to think that I didn't know that yet. This will help. I still had time to leave and make sure they couldn't track me down any further. Fortunately, I had a plan for that. So who am I and who is trying to track me down? Who I am now doesn't matter because this personality is about to disappear completely. In 2 hours, I'll be someone completely different. The trail the hunters are following will come to a dead end before they can get enough information to figure out who I am. What I am, or will soon become, is a hacker. I'm a very good hacker. I am also a very evil hacker with a very select list of targets. I monitor their bank accounts and, anonymously of course, provide incriminating evidence to the relevant authorities. I am personally responsible for the conviction of 4 politicians, at least 50 police officers, a dozen soldiers in different countries, and so many small traders that I cannot even count. I also siphoned off more than $100 million from their coffers. Of course, I take a percentage of it, but about 80% goes to various charities. Most of them deal with rehabilitation programs. Why, you ask? Simply, my little sister got involved with the wrong guy. I really didn't like him, but she wouldn't listen to me. I did everything I could, but she made her choice. I tried my best to take care of her after our parents died. I've always been very good at computers, but the 2 dark years I spent in depressive isolation after identifying what was left of her body turned me from really good to almost magical. I spent these 2 years alone in the basement of my parents' old house, learning dark secrets and how to manipulate them. I have found back doors in most security programs. Somewhere during these 2 years, some very harmful information about the gang that tortured and killed my sister fell into the hands of the DEA. Rival gangs have received information that the gang in question is using state evidence against others to try to make a deal. Gangs move faster than cops, so the state has saved a lot of money on lawsuits. My pursuers are hired by the cartel, which I freed from about $30 million. I really should have settled on $28 million, but then I discovered another small account. I knew there was something wrong with it, but I was young, stupid, and still angry. As soon as this money went through 40 different accounts in 6 countries, my anti-hacking programs began to cause alarm. Someone has included a backtracking program in the account. They were looking for the place where the attack was launched. It will take some time. They had to go through about 100 IP addresses before they could even start a chain of bypass servers. I inserted the flash drive and did a few keystrokes and mouse clicks. The trail leading to me was actually cut off with no way to get the data. The abandoned building I lived in burned down from a homeless bonfire that got out of control. Hard drives and memory cards were burned in a bonfire in the desert, along with all my personal documents. After making sure that it was impossible to get any information from the burning pile of debris, I got into the van and drove west. I arrived in Las Vegas 4 days later, 5 years later. Honey, help me. The computer is malfunctioning again. I called my beautiful wife, Linda. Really, Mark? How is it possible for a 25-year-old man to be so bad at computers? What would you do without me? She said, giving me a quick kiss on the top of my head. A couple of quick clicks and keystrokes, and I went back to checking my email. Dinner will be ready in about half an hour. Thank you, dear, I replied, watching her return to the kitchen. It's been 2 years since Linda and I got married. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. After leaving my previous life, I recreated myself anew. I worked as a truck driver at a local lumber mill. We were a union yard, so the salary was decent. I very carefully withdrew a couple $100,000 from one of my offshore accounts and bought a nice, modest 3-bedroom house on a plot of about an acre. I built a secluded building next to the house to use it as a store and warehouse. I also added a hidden room to restore and update my computer system. It was a small walk-through storage room, but it had a raised floor that went up to get to the stairs leading underground. Everything looked like an ordinary concrete floor. I decided that I would give up chasing dealers and cartels for a while. I had enough money stashed away in case I needed it, and it was prudent to disappear and let everything cool down. However, I didn't want to lose my skills, and I needed to keep up with new technologies. The store was intended for my hobby, creating old muscle cars. My wife wasn't interested in this at all, so she never came into my store. It also gave me time and privacy to go online and play a bit so she wouldn't suspect anything. You may be wondering why I'm hiding this from her. The truth is, she knows me as a simple mechanic and truck driver who knows almost nothing about computers. Obviously, when I met her and we started dating, I couldn't just go out and introduce myself as a hacker named Ghost in the computer underground. First of all, the feds were looking for me. I committed several cybercrimes, and they also wanted to lock me in a room and use my skills for their own purposes. Secondly, there were several very bad criminal organizations that included me in their list of targets. If they caught me, my end would be very ugly and extremely painful. How long would our relationship last after that? Do you even need to ask? After we got married, there were a few more things to do. It was for her own protection. If she didn't know, they couldn't use her to get any information. No, it's better that she only knows the man she married. Okay, a little bit about my wife. First of all, she is the most beautiful woman on the planet, for me. I always read in these stories that every woman is always the most beautiful woman on the planet, and I wonder how there can be more than one. I'm not going to lie to you. To you, she may only be above average in appearance, but to me, she's a goddess. Different points of view and different strokes. She is 5 feet 6 inches tall, wavy copper bronze hair to the middle of her back, emerald green eyes, a slim waist with a flat tummy, slightly wide 40-inch hips with an ass to die for. Long, slender, toned, and tanned legs. She has a thin nose, high cheekbones, dimples when she smiles, full lips that can be kissed, and a proud chin, but not too prominent. So how did we meet? I was working at the sawmill one afternoon when she came in. She needed a couple of boards to put up shelving in her new apartment. While we were choosing her order, she mentioned that she wasn't really very good at tools. Obviously, I offered to come after work and set up shelves for her. My price was for her to buy a beer and let me do it for dinner the next night. After that, the dinner turned into dancing. Sorry, guys and girls. The date ended with just a chaste kiss on the cheek. The truth was that I was really afraid of girls. Perhaps a little explanation should be given here. When I stole all that money from the cartel, I was a skinny 19-year-old, 6'1", 110-pound computer nerd. My life didn't exist up to this point. The first one was pretty disappointing. She was standing on Fremont Street. I picked her up. We did it in the back seat of my car. I ejaculated, but she acted like a robot. The second time I was in a brothel in Pahrump. At least she acted like she cared. My third time was also in a brothel in Pahrump. This time I had the necessary funds. I paid for the whole night and made her really teach me how to please a woman. Now I was dating a woman I liked. It wasn't until our 5th date that we made love. I took her to dinner in the Stratosphere. After a bottle of expensive wine at dinner and a few drinks at the club between dances for 2 hours, we returned to my house. I used to think she was beautiful, but without clothes, she was an absolute goddess. I didn't even have to ask. The soaked sheets answered my questions about whether everything was okay. As long as I made her happy, I was fine. I also spent a whole year doing sports. This, combined with my work, has increased my muscle mass and endurance. Now I was 6 feet 1 inch tall, 220 pounds in weight. Of course, I considered myself a nerd. Linda and I dated for about 6 months before I proposed to her. We got married 6 months later. We were happy together. She worked as an accountant for a large national company with an office in Las Vegas. She was making pretty good money there, and we combined our income to live a pretty good life. I never had to go through my secret accounts. We went to the best restaurants, watched shows, rode a nice pontoon boat on the lake, and both drove nice cars. Our life was pretty good. On average, we met about 4 times a week. We didn't have children yet, so our lovemaking took place almost all over the house, in the backyard, in the pool, and hot tub. As a rule, after I got home from work, I would go to my store and mess around for a couple of hours before dinner. I spent about half of my time working on one of my machines, and the other half in the room playing on the computer. I wasn't really doing anything wrong. I was just hacking into places I shouldn't have been. In fact, I've never taken anything or entered anything into the system. I was kind of maintaining my skills. Of course, I could have stolen a lot of data and money, but I didn't want to leave any traces. After dinner, we would snuggle on the couch and watch a movie before going to bed. Sometimes the bed included a couple of hours of bed before falling asleep. I continued to demonstrate my complete technological incompetence. After all, who would look at someone who can barely check their email and assume that this is one of the most wanted hackers in the world? All this time, I've been hacking into the computer systems of banks, government, and big businesses. I also reconfigured the army of personal computer bots that I had before. I masked my location by initiating my hacks from foreign servers, sometimes from multiple servers at the same time. About 6 months ago, I noticed that Linda was getting a little more stressed, although it didn't really seem like such a big deal. She worked longer hours and got tired when she came home. Most of the time, she just went straight to the shower, had dinner, and then went to bed. I asked her, and she said something about the big bill they were trying to get. It seemed plausible. Sometimes she would call me from her office on a Friday and tell me that she was going to a happy hour after work with several colleagues at work. She's done it enough times that I don't worry. After about 6 months, I asked how long it would last. I figured that by this time they should have either received the bill or lost it. Linda told me that it would probably take another week or two and then everything would calm down again. I decided she needed a little pampering since she worked so hard, so I bought her a full-day spa package for this Saturday. She was thrilled when I gave it to her on Wednesday evening. Saturday finally arrived and she went on her spa day at 9 a.m. After a quick kiss, she walked out the door. She won't be back until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I grabbed my coffee and went out to the store to finish assembling the engine that I had on the stand. After about an hour, I took a break and went to my computer room. Up to this point, I had deliberately avoided hacking into Linda's company. It was one of those don't shit in your own kitchen things. I was pretty adamant about this. I didn't contact the company I worked for, and I wouldn't contact the company she worked for. After logging in and checking my security software, I began to wonder what kind of large account it was. Maybe I should look at what it was and maybe take a look at their servers to see what was there. Their safety was child's play. I was there in a couple of minutes. The first stop is Linda's computer. She was working on a project, so from there I can get directions in the right direction. Strange. There was nothing special about the new large clients. I conducted several searches for the keywords offer, new customer, quote, and several others that were related to trying to win a new account. Nothing. I started going through her folders. That's when I found a locked folder called Photos for James. Why does Linda have a folder with photos for this little weasel? Yes, I knew who James was. I met him several times at corporate events that I went to with Linda. I didn't really like him very much. Although Linda thought she was actually pretty good at computers, I opened the folder in a matter of seconds. To say that I was shocked would be the understatement of the year. The same ass she kept denying me. I sat and stared blankly at the photos. At that moment, I felt like a part of me was dying. I soon came to my senses and started thinking about meeting her as soon as she got home. The divorce from this fool was a foregone conclusion. I had a few hours left before she returned home, so I kept looking for more information. I thought it probably started about 6 months ago when I first noticed a change in her. I opened her email and got an even bigger shock. Several of their email conversations showed that it was much more long-term than I thought. It looks like they were lovers for about a year before she met me. If that's the case, then why did she even start dating me? What's happening? I found another email where she mentioned something about accounting errors with several of her large clients as well as their own company. Then there was something about an offshore account. I switched to James's computer. There were more pictures of Linda. Several showed her in a room that looked like a motel room and in another man's bedroom. I needed more time for this, so I ended up copying his and Linda's computers, as well as their folders on the company's network, to a free disk on my server. Out of habit, I checked the personnel folder on the server. I stopped for a minute when I saw my name on one of the folders. Before leaving the network, I installed some spyware on both computers, as well as on the server. This will automatically redirect everything they have done to my computer system. Needless to say, any work on my cars took a back seat for a while. She could have been the devil incarnate, and I would have taken advantage of it anyway. Oh, right. To me, she was the devil incarnate. The little head didn't care, and the big head just decided to take a ride. Sunday came, and I returned to my store. Linda was asleep when I got up, so I took the opportunity to open her phone and install spyware on it. Text messages will be secretly copied to my computer system, and all phone calls will be listened to and digitally recorded on a separate hard drive. I'll also be able to keep track of everything she did online. Linda left around 10 a.m. She said she was going to meet one of her friends to go shopping. Her Friend Finder app was disabled on her phone, so instead I hacked into her car's internal GPS to track her. Surprisingly, she actually went to the mall. After making sure she wasn't coming back soon, I took her laptop. The first step was to copy everything that was in the laptop to another hard drive. Then I downloaded the keylogger program and set up the camera for remote access. I didn't think I'd have much time before returning the laptop to where she left it, so I decided to quickly look through her browser history. That's when I found the second email address. I also noticed that she visited a bank in the Cayman Islands several times. I'll need to take a look at this later. I wiped some grease and oil on my hands and face to make it look like I was actually working on the car when I heard Linda come home. Shower, dinner, movie, then bed. For a week, I maintained the appearance that I was an ignorant, loving husband. Every evening, I went to the store pretending to work on one of my cars for a couple of hours. In fact, I've been going through the mountains of information I've been collecting. On Tuesday evening, I read a text exchange between Linda and James that caught my attention. James warned her about deleting the history on my laptop after using it. Why would she need my laptop? Of course, I set up my laptop to connect to servers as soon as I bought it, but I never thought about spying on myself. The next evening, as I was reviewing the day's updates from their work computers, another stream of data began to arrive. I quickly realized that it was my personal laptop. Having minimized everything else, I began to look at the new stream approaching. It looks like money transfers were taking place. I turned on the laptop camera and moved the tape to another screen. Linda was working on my computer. She also had Bluetooth in her ear. The microphone picked up her voice as she spoke. I used the third screen to start a live stream from her phone call. I watched and listened as Linda, following James's instructions, transferred about $50,000 from a fictitious account in their company to a bank in the Cayman Islands. And they used my computer for that. Soon she finished, deleted the history for that day, and logged out. What's going on here? I haven't had time to look through my personal file from their HR folder yet. And now I find out that I have been appointed a computer security consultant. James obviously hired me since he was the head of their IT department. I also found several payments for my services. All of them, of course, went to the Cayman Islands account. Let's take a look. I was unknowingly hired as a computer security consultant. Linda and James used my computer and IP address to transfer large amounts of money from a fake account at their firm to an offshore bank. Moreover, Linda and James had an affair even before I met Linda. I was beginning to realize that I was being pulled on something. It's time to change gears. Now that I understood what was going on, I needed to see how bad it was and figure out what to do about it. It was bad. When I checked the account in the Cayman Islands, I saw that there were almost $10 million in it. Checking the transfers, I saw that they were doing this about 6 months after Linda and I got married. They also tried not very subtly to hide which computer was used to steal the money. Worse, a deeper dig into my personal file showed several red flags. Yes, when this shit hit the fan, I was in the target area. What am I supposed to do about it now? Surprisingly, it wasn't really that hard to behave normally around this fool. I just let the little head take responsibility when she was around. Did she want to use me? I'm happy to use it since I've started to really use both of them. What can I tell you? She's hot. Yes, I took every opportunity to make love to her. The following Saturday, I looked through her email from the beginning of our meeting. That's when I found out that they had chosen me as a scapegoat from the very first day. Yes, she thought I was attractive and that sleeping with me wouldn't be such a chore, but she was a little worried about my apparent lack of computer skills. James thought it would be a bonus. The less I know about operating computers, the less likely I am to find out their plan. Now I needed a revenge plan. I started setting everything up. First, a couple of new bank accounts were opened. Then I activated the army of bots that I had created. Most of the bot army would be distracting, but I had one small group that could be tracked down, although it would be difficult. Only a really good hacker will be able to match it to the source. I didn't want it to be too easy. Of course, I erased the personnel folder with my name from the servers of Linda's company. I also hacked and changed all the file transfers that were made on my laptop to show a different IP address. To prevent this from happening again, I ran a very nasty virus on my laptop and then disconnected it from my secret servers. Later that evening, when I went to check my email, I discovered that a virus had attacked my laptop from the spam I had opened and pretty much destroyed it. I wasn't surprised by the concern on Linda's face when she saw what had happened. The next morning, I saw an exchange of messages between Linda and James. Apparently, they were almost at the end of the scam. They just wanted 2 more transfers to get another $10 million before luring me into a trap. The plan was to suddenly discover the theft. Of course, since Linda will be the only one who will actually discover this, she will be in charge of the investigation. James, as an IT manager, will lead the cyber part of the investigation. No wonder it's going to lead straight to me. Linda, of course, will file divorce papers for me while I'm in prison, and then, about a year later, she will marry James. Of course, there will be some suspicions about Linda's possible involvement, but she will point to her investigation, as well as her belief that I must have hidden my knowledge of computers from her. Also, it should be obvious that she was a victim, since I specifically targeted her and used her to gain access to the company's computer systems. They both laughed at the thought of me trying to answer questions about where the money went when I had no idea what the police were talking about. Linda also said she would buy me a new laptop, and that they would be able to make the last transfers within the next 3 weeks. Now I knew what my deadline was. On Monday, I told my boss that I needed a week off for some personal business. I had a lot of free time, so it wasn't a problem. I checked something on the internet to find the meanest, dirtiest, most aggressive shark for a divorce lawyer in town, and made an appointment for the next day. They thought they had 3 weeks, but they'd be lucky if they lasted 2. When I got home, I turned on my computer and got to work. I logged into James's home computer. For an IT professional, you'd think he'd have the sense to turn it off when he's not using it. No, all he did was turn off the monitor. I started his computer via a server in Belarus. Not that it really matters, because that connection will be erased anyway. His computer will be the end of the road for anyone who follows it. The cartel I joined 5 years ago at least learned something about security. They changed their accounts and passwords, but still use the same banks. Updated passwords? They only work when you don't store them on your personal computers, which are vulnerable to phishing software embedded in email links for goods that any multimillionaire would want. It was just a preliminary job. I'll wait until I'm done with Linda before I go after James. James won't survive this, and I still need to use him to bring down Linda. As usual, I went to my store to work on my car. She really left to run to Walmart and buy me a new laptop. While she was away, I did some preliminary work on the arrangement. It was important for her to be at home when she was using the computer. If she could show that she was not at home, she would have an alibi. I couldn't let that happen. When she got home, she texted me that she had bought me a new laptop and said it would take her about an hour to set it up for me. I thanked her and got to work. First, he eliminated all ties with James. I hated her, but I still didn't want her to get hurt. James will probably be tortured and killed, but Linda will just go to prison for the next couple of decades. Who knows? I used a separate server route to Linda's laptop. There is no roundabout way here, just a direct link to her work computer and then to the company's servers. $20 million was transferred from the company to 4 different accounts in her name. Then travel plans were made. A one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands was purchased for her on Thursday morning. Before leaving her computer, I deleted James from her contacts, erased all emails with him, and deleted all history from the account. Then I deleted all my spyware. It was a risk, but I didn't think she would have enough time to do something too bad. Finally, I severed and erased the connection I had with her laptop. After all this, I remotely disabled the wireless router in the house. I had a separate one, and a much better one in the store. Of course, she didn't know that. The message popped out of the spyware I had installed on her phone. Apparently, she finished setting up the laptop for me when the internet disappeared. She was just about to use my computer for another transfer when the connection was lost. I laughed. While they were discussing the problem, I transferred all the money they had already stolen to new accounts that I had created in Linda's name. As soon as this account was empty, I closed it. The last thing I did was delete the spyware from Linda's phone. I didn't know who would be watching it later, and I didn't want anyone to know she was being followed. Then I closed everything and went to dinner. Tomorrow will be an interesting day, to put it mildly. Linda was, to put it mildly, a little excited when I came in. She told me that my new computer is set up and ready, but the internet is off. I won't be able to log in and check my email. She had no idea how small a problem this was for me. That evening, she was busy throughout the movie. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched her playing on her phone. I could almost feel her frustration growing. I suspected that she was trying to access the account and failed. She also corresponded with someone. I was smiling when I went to bed. There was no bed that night. The next morning, I got up and left the house before Linda left for work. In fact, I was just fooling around before meeting with the lawyer. I was wondering how Linda's day went. However, I'll find out in a couple of hours. It was my lawyer. 5 feet 6 inches tall, angelic face, curves that would make a racing car lose control, feet for miles that would start a war. 2 minutes after the start of the hearing, and I could tell that she would be a barracuda in the courtroom. You could almost hear the heart singing along to the chorus in the room. After making sure everything was confidential, I explained that my wife had been cheating on me throughout our relationship. Next, I explained to her about the embezzlement and the setup. She asked how I found out about all this, and I gave her a partial answer. I didn't exactly lie, but I didn't tell her the whole truth either. Okay, I lied like crazy. I told her that I was using my wife's laptop because mine wasn't working properly. The emails documented her betrayal and their embezzlement. I just wanted to get out of this marriage before all this shit hit the fan. She agreed to take up the case and start preparing the documents. She said she would probably be able to serve her by the end of the week. I told her to hold it for a while. I suddenly had a better idea, and I didn't want to reveal too much too soon. We finished the meeting and I went home, turned on my system, restarted the home Wi-Fi and got to work. I left the spyware turned on at Linda's work. Apparently, the shit hit the fan in full force. An emergency meeting was held first thing in the morning. The theft of $20 million was discovered and an investigation was launched. By this time, I had managed to hack into James' phone. James followed the theft and found that it led directly to Linda. He also discovered that their account had been emptied and transferred to new accounts with $20 million since last night. Accusations poured in, and no excuses could be found. Suddenly, Linda received an email saying that she was being called to a meeting with the CEO, CFO, and head of security. It should be interesting. The sound of several cars pulling into my driveway interrupted my fun. I closed up, went into the main store, and locked the secret door. No one needs to be interested in this room. Yes, I smeared myself with grease to make it look like I was working on my car. When I left the store, I saw several police cars, as well as several large Chevrolet Suburban. The police were in their usual uniforms, but the people getting out of the big SUVs were wearing windbreakers with the FBI lettering on the back. I wonder what it could be about. I barely glanced at the warrants and let them into the house. Of course, I offered all possible help as I had nothing to hide. Guide mode. Yes, it must be my wife's computer. It's mine, but it hasn't really been used since we only got it yesterday and the Wi-Fi was turned off last night. Of course, take whatever you think you need. No, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. Sorry, I'm not very good at computers. Just ask my wife and all our friends. I lost track of what was going on with Linda when I was taken to the police station and severely interrogated for several hours. My story has withstood it all. After all, I was just a truck driver with almost no computer skills. No, I had no idea what my wife was doing at work. She was an accountant, worked with several clients, but I didn't know who those clients were. What do you mean by a one-way ticket out of the country? Is it just her? No, I have no idea why she would fly anywhere without me. It soon became clear to them that I didn't know anything about what was going on. They searched my store thoroughly, but did not find the entrance to the computer room. In the end, they let me go home. Linda was arrested while I was being interrogated. Poor James was forced to testify against her, and also to see how all the money was found so that it could be returned. He must have really felt betrayed when he found out that she had denied him access to money, transferred it to her own accounts, and then booked a one-way trip out of the country, leaving him with nothing. Fortunately, I foresaw that I would be interrogated. After all, I was her husband. It would be reasonable to assume that I might be working with her on this. Of course, I was her only phone call. Being an obedient husband, I called and found her a lawyer. Yes, I've made inquiries about all the criminal defense lawyers in the city. Obviously, I needed to find the best lawyers so I wouldn't accidentally screw up and hire one of them for her. No, I purposely hired one of those who was slightly below average. I wanted her to be convicted and serve her entire sentence. The cool thing is that this is a federal case, and that there is no parole or good behavior leave in federal prisons. If you are sentenced to 20 years in federal court, you will spend the entire 20 years in federal prison, all the way. I attended her bail hearing and used the house as collateral to bail her out. Because she was at risk of flying, she had to wear an ankle monitor. No matter how much I hated her, I could pretend to be a loving husband by all outward signs. Fortunately, she was too depressed and shocked by her predicament to want a bed. Her mobile phone was confiscated as evidence, so I went down and bought her a new one. Yes, I took it to my store and added my spyware to it before giving it to her. Strangely, James blocked her number after she texted him the first time. He replied that he could not have any contact with her, as he was going to be called as a witness against her. Foolishly, she refused a plea bargain and insisted on going to trial. She continued to claim that someone had framed her. She really thought she was going to win. Really, she didn't do it. Oh, she was guilty of embezzling half the money that was in that account, just not all the money, or using that particular account, or using her own computer, or buying a plane ticket, or firing her partner. Of course, the money was refunded and returned easily. The trial was funny from my point of view. It was very interesting to watch James testify against her from computer records. I saw his inner struggle over having to testify against his mistress, but he also thought she had betrayed him and planned to run away and leave him behind. All Linda could see was that her soulmate had betrayed her and sent her to prison. I was full of glee during the 3 days of his testimony. I watched in silence as her love for him turned to hatred. She did her best on the witness stand, testifying on her own behalf. Unfortunately for her, the evidence was too strong, and she really couldn't come up with a plausible explanation for it. She will spend the next 20 years in federal prison. As the trial was coming to an end, it was time to take care of James. I had a really evil plan for him. Unfortunately, he will never know why this happened to him or that it was me. I couldn't take that risk. That would be fun. I asked my lawyer to change the divorce papers to take into account Linda's conviction and the fact that she will be in prison for the next 2 decades. She was served a couple of days later. I have opened a couple of new accounts in Geneva, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands with links to James. Using the dark web, I left a few barely noticeable traces, and all of them led to James's IP address. The ghost returned after 5 years. Of course, hacker chats picked it up. Now comes the hard part. I should have left a trail, but it couldn't be obvious. I needed to make it possible for them to believe that it was an experienced hacker and believe that it was actually me, but still let them believe that I had made a minor enough mistake that they could still follow the trail. I had to go through 10 servers in 6 different countries. In the end, I launched an army of bots and attacked the first bank. Eventually, I went in, found the 2 accounts I was looking for, and transferred them to James's new accounts. Having done this, I stopped the attack on the bank, severed and erased my connection to James's computer, and then logged into the dark web to observe the reaction. I didn't really expect anything yet, but it's better to be careful. The next morning, there was another attack on another bank. 4 more accounts were emptied. Now the account I opened for James had $20 million in it. People started looking for me. They won't find me, of course, but they'll find the ghost eventually. Several dark web hacking boards caught fire. There was a group that was following the trail. It looks like it was the same group that tracked me down 5 years ago. It's time to end this. I went back to the bank. I bypassed James's computer and transferred $20 million to another Swiss account that I opened. Then I wiped all the fingerprints off that transmission. I wasn't worried about the cartel getting that money back. I reconnected to James's computer and launched another attack on the bank with an account that had a tracker embedded in it. This time it was only $2 million. The money didn't matter. Only the tracker attached to it mattered. Last time I ran away because I knew about the thefts and could see how the tracker was working. If I hadn't known about the money transfers or accounts I had, and if I hadn't known about the tracker attached to that last account, I would have been caught. I wonder how James will try to explain all this to them. I'd like to see them ask him where the money is when he has no idea what kind of money they're talking about. It's time to cut the connection with his computer and erase all my fingerprints. It was a week later. I cleaned out my computer room and turned it into a storage room. I was finishing paperwork for a place I bought in Montana through the C Corporation, which kept my name a secret, when the news broke about a missing person. It looked like James hadn't been at work for a couple of days and no one knew where he was. His car was found abandoned in the parking lot of one of the shopping malls, but he was nowhere to be seen. I wonder where he might be. Well then, I had to get back to packing. James. No, I screamed when they used the cattle prod on my testicles again. I swear I don't know what you're talking about. Bullshit, Mr. Ghost. You made a mistake this time. The tracking software led us directly to your computer. We found all the data on your computer. We recovered $2 million after the last hack, but we want to know where the other $20 million is, as well as the $30 million received 5 years ago. You tell us that and we'll kill you quickly. Keep lying to us and it will only get worse. But I do not know. They grabbed me just as I was about to get into my car at the mall. I felt a needle prick in my neck, then nothing. I woke up a few hours later on a private jet, securely strapped to my seat. That's when the questions started. I had no idea what they were talking about. They kept calling me a ghost. They asked about the money they said I stole. A few days ago, it was $20 million, and another $30 million 5 years ago. They didn't believe me when I said I didn't know anything. I actually wet myself when I was shown irrefutable evidence on my personal computer. I could have given them the answers they needed and died quickly. Otherwise, they would turn the rest of my much shorter life into a continuous agony. I fucked up when I realized I didn't have the answers I could give them. Right now, I was hanging naked from the ceiling in a bunker somewhere deep in the jungles of Colombia. I've been here for 3 days now. On the first day, they beat me up when I couldn't answer. On the second day, there was a whip. Today, it is a push for cattle to sensitive areas. I really would like to give them answers. I really don't want to know what will happen tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow. Mark, moving day. James left a little over a month ago. His exhausted body was found yesterday on the side of a road in Colombia. Mark will disappear by the end of the day. I will accept my new identity after one more stop. I've already sent everything I took with me. All this was sent to a vault in Denver, paid for by bank transfer from an anonymous account. Linda was brought in and handcuffed to a table in front of me. She didn't look very well. Orange was definitely not her color. No makeup. Her hair was a little disheveled. She also had bags under her eyes. She doesn't seem to be used to prison yet. "So, how are you holding up?" I asked. "Please, Mark, you have to help me. I didn't do what they said." She begged. "Linda," I sighed. "I can't do anything for you. Besides, we're getting divorced." "Please, Mark, I didn't do it and I don't want a divorce." "Just sign the papers, Linda. It's over." "Please, Mark, just talk to James. See if you can get his help. He can help me. We were friends once. Please just ask him," she begged. "Have you heard of James?" I asked. "No. I'm still waiting for his visit, but he never came." "Well, he'll never come now. He was killed in Colombia." Her face went white with shock. "No, he couldn't do it," she said. "Maybe he didn't know, but they seem to think he did. And now, Linda, you really just need to sign the divorce papers and forget about it." "But you're leaving me with nothing," she exclaimed. "Of course. You don't need anything here. You'll be here for the next 20 years. Please, Mark, you have to help me. I can't stay here. My cellmate is forcing me to do something. I cannot. I'm not gay. I need to get out of here. You are welcome. The time has come. Let me tell you a story, Linda. Maybe this will help you. There was a really good hacker about 5 years ago. They called him a ghost. The hacker got this tag because he was good at covering his tracks. It was literally as if a ghost had invaded the computer system. It was actually a personal mission. More than $30 million was stolen from one of the cartels before the cartel hired other hackers to track down the ghost. Of course, the ghost saw the trackers coming and blacked out before they found him. The ghost disappeared and created a new life. The ghost ceased to exist and stopped all computer activity, except for some minor system hacks to practice and maintain technology. For everyone who knew him, he was pretty illiterate in computers. Even his wife didn't know who he really was. Yes, he fell in love and got married. He really loved his wife with all his heart. After being married for 3 years, he accidentally discovered that his wife was not in love with him. He discovered that she had been cheating on him throughout their relationship with her real boyfriend. To make matters worse, he found out that his wife had married him, only so that she and her boyfriend could frame him so that he would take the blame for the embezzlement they were committing. Her eyes were as big as plates, and her skin turned completely white when I told her about their plan. So the ghost decided that he couldn't let that happen and made a plan to take revenge on those two. First, he hacked into their computers, phones, and work network to get information. Then he changed everything to remove his name from the frame and put all the evidence directly on his wife. He also made sure that his wife's boyfriend believed that she was cheating on him. The final nail for his wife was to get her lover to testify against her and put her in jail for years, breaking their hearts and believing that they had been betrayed by another, almost as much as the ghost felt betrayed by his wife. "You," she gasped. Now to continue, since his wife has been taken care of, it's time to go after her lover. After all, the cartel was still looking for the ghost. Why not take revenge and make the cartel believe they've finally caught their prey? Well, the ghost used his wife's lover's computer to hack and steal a lot of money from this cartel. Unfortunately for his wife's ex-boyfriend, the ghost was a little careless and made a small mistake. The ghost didn't completely destroy the trail leading to the boyfriend's computer, so the cartel was able to trace the break-in to the boyfriend. Authorities believe the boyfriend was tortured for more than a month before he finally died. Unfortunately for the guy, he just didn't have the information the cartel needed. None of this is really real or plausible, much less provable, but I thought such a fictional story might help you cope. True, I believe you didn't do exactly what the evidence says you did, but no, you're not even close to innocent. Now just sign the papers. Just think about what life would be like if the wrong person had accidentally stumbled upon some information that shows that you are a prison snitch. I watched her face go from white to red. "You bastard!" she screamed and rushed towards me. It is no coincidence that the guards attach handcuffs to the table. The chains are short enough that the prisoner cannot reach someone on the other side of the table. I came out when they dragged her away screaming. I got into a cheap disposable car and drove to the mall. After parking, I left the mark in the car and walked to the other side, where my real car was waiting for me. With my new identity, I ducked away.